we are. We got a new project in the shop. That's Charlie unloading it. And yeah, what we got here is a 1964 Mercedes. Beautiful little car. It's a previous EV conversion by another company. I believe it was built in 2017. And again, really beautiful thing. But again, it was built a while ago, and it's in the shop because it requires some attention. The vehicle no longer operates. So we're gonna assess the system, see what's going on with it, and just kind of give it an overall assessment and state of health. So we got a little time lapse going on. One of the things that I'm gonna do here is I'm actually taking the covers off the battery pack. We did find out that the batteries were extremely discharged, and so I'm just going to double check to see how low the individual cell voltages have gotten. So I'm removing the covers off of the pack that's under the hood. So this is what we got so far. There's an imbalance in the pack. A lot of them are floating between high 2.4s and there's actually a few that were close to 2.7s, but one of the issues there, I wrote 2.2 on that guy, and I believe on that one over there 2.2 as well. So we have two that definitely dropped off. The other thing I noticed is that we have another battery pack down there under the controllers. So to fully assess the pack, I need to take these guys off and take a look at those. And the best way I think is going to be taking the hood off, but I'm also noticing we got missing hardware already, right? So I'm just kind of making note of that. The other side, I think it has all of it, but let's see. It's a really nice car. I feel like all old cars, right? Just there's little things, but yeah, it looks like the hardware's fine here. It's just over there that it's missing. So again, just going over it, video logging it. Really old setup, but we'll see what it is we could do with it. Try to get this guy back on the road. So one of the things we did is we put blue tape on the majority of those seams, before we remove that hood, just to be careful that we don't nick any of the edges on it. The car does have a vinyl wrap that's on it, so we're just being real careful with things. Also taking a look, seeing how much slack is on those lines, and again, we're going to be removing the controller, but I'm going to try to be as non-invasive as possible. So I'm going to trace most of the connections, see how much slack we have, and the idea is to kind of just get these guys out of the way enough so we can have access to that lower pack that's right under those. So yeah, it looks like we're going to be able to sneak in there. And here we go. Right, I removed those two connectors off of the Curtis controllers. Has some hardware that's actually holding the controllers down in place. One of the things I want to double check before I go much further with these is on my high voltage connections. So one of the things you see I'm doing here is I'm actually going to measure the most positive and most negative. I've already double checked where those two go. They basically go to my main battery pack, and just as a good rule of thumb, I always check before I disconnect any live high voltage connection, because I don't want it to be live. That's pretty much it. So I verified those two were, I measured across them, needed to see 0 volts. They're connected in parallel, so I measured both of them just in case. I don't know if you guys saw earlier, but I also measured one of the cells just to make sure my meter was accurate. And it all checked out well, so I get to continue, move all the cables out of the way, get the controllers out of the way, and it gives me just enough room to be able to lift those battery covers off. So I'm kind of taking those off now. And I'll be able to sneak my meter in there. And there's about 6 cells in there, and I'm measuring each one of those cells to see what their state of or their SOC is, basically their. So what I brought out here is an adjustable voltage power supply. I got 2 different styles. I got this one here. It's like really nice. I could dial up both my amperage and my voltage. This unit actually goes up to about 120 volts, and it could do as low as like I think like 2 volts or something. So yeah, I'm just kind of moving the dial around, just showing you guys that, you know, it's adjustable. I could dial it up, dial it down. These cells, I'm going to try to bring those 2 individual cells up to match the rest of the pack, which is 2.2. I also brought that unit out there, which is a much smaller power supply. That one goes from 0 to 4 volts, pumps out about 30 amps. Works really well. I got to make the harness for it. But the idea is to come in here and, you know, get those 2 cells that I marked. Right, you see there where on that number 3. But I'm gonna get those basically the positive and negative connections on there, and go to my cells that are really low, those 2 that are there, and bring those 2 up. Right, I'm gonna hook them up together in parallel, and then put my power supply to them and bring them up. I'm going to move all the bus bars out of the way. So, you know, technically it wouldn't go downstream to any of the rest of the pack. But I've always found it a good rule of thumb to just get the rest of the connections out of the way and just deal with the 2 that I'm going to be working with. One of the things I was very cautious with is I did make sure that measured 2.2 there and the other one the same. Because before I connected them together in parallel, if these 2 were too far away in voltage from one another, I could have a surge of power run from one to the other. So I verified they're close enough. I'm going to use my insulating tools to disconnect those, you know, the connections and the bus bars. And you know, even though I'm working on that one bank there, so I'm dealing with more of a medium volt threshold, I'm still really cautious of creating short circuits, which is the primary reason why I brought the insulated tools out. You know, the last thing I want to do is, you know, get a metal wrench. You know, so like, you know, imagine I'm gonna grab one of these tools. They're fully insulated, covered in the, you know, insulation property plastic. And, you know, if I drop that across there, it's not going to create a short, you know, versus if I had a conventional metal tool, I could create a dead short there and just cause all sorts of trouble with it. So again, it's working a little segment at a time is not so much of an electrocution hazard, but the short circuit scenario is always present. So it's always just best to work cautiously and get the right stuff in front of you. Alright, so I got all those bus bars out the way, and what I have to do next is I have to make basically my harness from the power supply to those 2 cells there, right? So as I mentioned before, I'm going to be you know, kind of connecting the 2 cells in parallel, then connecting those to my power supply, and then I could dial the voltage up respectively for the both of them. So kind of just getting these things going. You know, you'd be surprised how much jumper lead I'm always making. So what I'm going to do, so I'm going to turn my power supply on. I kept these cables away from one another. Obviously, I don't want them shorting out. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the voltage first here before it's connected there. The reason I do that is that oftentimes when you connect to the battery and you're dialing the voltage, it loaded the power supply down. So if I'm looking to, you know, set this like at 2.7, it's critical that I set it here first, shut it off, then connect it over there, turn it back on. You know, that way it's more accurate reading versus I have it hooked up and then I'm trying to dial it in while it's also like trying to charge up the battery instantly. You end up overshooting the mark often. So again, because this power supply that I have, usually I use it for battery packs or battery modules. Oh, there we go. All right, 2.7. Prepped to 2.8. even the 226 is pretty good, right? Because a lot of them were floating around that mark. So I'm going to leave it at that, hook it up, turn it back on. We'll see how much current is pulling in it, and then we'll just keep monitoring as we go. So just to double check, I'm going to shut it off, turn it back on, see if it maintained my setting. And there we go, right about 2.7. It must have been real close to 2.6, 2.7, which I'm more than comfortable. So this is how I hook them up, right? Positive goes with positive over there, negative goes to negative here, and they both run over to my power supply, which is still off. So one of the things I noticed right now was, you know, I had measured the 2.2, you know, when the bus bars were all still connected. What's really odd is when I measured right now, I'll show you guys, like I went there, and there, I just connect these 2 points there, and I look at my meter. Apologize for that. I'm at 0.9. So something's definitely not correct. I'm starting to think that 2.2 volts that I measured earlier when the bus bars were all connected, it wasn't like a real value. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all this stuff off again, measure them without any of my connections. Probably put the bus bars back, measure again just to double check, because that's really odd. That hasn't happened to me before. So I'll do a little thinking on it. But the scenario is, if this really is like a, 0.9 volts, I could bring them up, but in reality, I mean, it shows really, really strong signs of degradation on the battery pack. So it's it's a bit of an issue as far as those two go, right? They might at 2.2, I thought maybe I could bring them up, see if they balanced out with everybody else, but at 0.9, that's definitely like a huge deviation from the rest of the values. So again, pretty strange scenario. So what I just to verify, I double checked again. I went on the single cell, and on this one here, I'm actually getting, I mean, it's like half a volt. And on the other one, I'm getting about 1.1 volts. So that's definitely an issue. So like I mentioned, I'm gonna put all these bars back, just out of curiosity. You learn something every day. When it was all connected together, I measured 2.2 as I was going down the charts. Just curious how it gave me such a false reading from 2.2 to like half a volt and a 1 volt. Those are definitely a shot. So I'll put it back together, then I'll do another measurement. So yeah, sure enough, I put all that back together. I got my meter and I measured again. So about half a volt here, about 1.2 volts there. Everybody else is still at 2.5. yeah, for the sake of me, I'm very curious as to why I read 2 volts earlier. Surface charge, I mean, I don't know, I'm trying to speculate at this point. Really strange. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna be a bit more thorough. I'm thinking I'll probably remove all the bus bars, measure, just to be sure, and I'll call the customer up and see. I don't think it makes much feasible sense to try to bring those 2 up. They're very far gone. I don't think they'll hold much of anything. So I checked the rest of them. They're all floating around 2.5s, 2.6s, just about. So I did go ahead and hook that guy back up. I put my power supply on, and you see how it's showing the 1 volt there? And that's because now it's connected there. Remember how I dialed it at 2.7? So it's bogging my power supply down. So as it starts to get charged, that will go up, but it'll cap at the 2.7. It won't go above that value. This is my amperage, and I could dial that up. These are the specs, I believe, are 180 amp hour cells. But again, because they're just so low, I'm not going to try to get them anywhere near their normal charge threshold. So I might just set this thing like at somewhere like here, like 9-10 amps, and just let it go for a couple hours. I'll move on to do a couple other things here in the shop, and just let it slowly just work its way up. I don't believe those cells are in any decent shape to I guess to say that they're roadworthy again. But I did put a little thought into this, and I figured, you know what, like as of right now, we can't test any of the rest of the systems. We can't verify, if we got codes in the inverter, I mean, obviously the 12 volt on, or even if the charger kicks on appropriately, right? We can't really do anything with the car unless we get this battery up to its threshold voltage, and at least close enough, and then plug everything in and see if everything activates. And if the I guess you would say the worst of the problems are just those 2 cells, we could probably talk about replacing those. But the bigger reality is that the system needs an update. That should never have happened with this battery. This battery probably had much more life under its belt, but because it doesn't have a proper or any battery management system. See, there's no cell tap wires on this. So there's no BMS on this. So there's several safeguards that the vehicle does not have, which I'll recommend to the customer. Make it a much more reliable vehicle, and it'll just be that route. So. So one of the things the previous stuff you guys saw, I found that the cells that were too low, so I brought them up, to match closer to the rest of the pack. But the overall battery pack voltage of the whole car was still too low for the charger to be able to kick on. Basically, the charger needs to be at a higher voltage, at least that's what I suspect, before it actually steps in and starts to charge these battery packs. So that's kind of the issue I've been having, that I was really hoping to just, balance those 2 cells out, plug the charger in, and, have the charger kind of take over. That is a pre-programmed charger, so more than likely it has a top threshold and a bottom threshold. And I'm pretty sure this vehicle, doing the math, it's way below the bottom threshold. So one of the things I'm doing here that you see with the power supply So this supply I have, I could go all the way up to 120 volts at 10 amps, and the battery pack is more like 160 volts nominal. So it's my supply. Like I can't step in and charge the battery pack as a whole. So what I did is I connected it to this front module. I guess you would say I did the math. There's 24 cells here. I multiplied that by 3.3, and I ended up really close to like 80 volts, like just about 80 volts. It was something like that. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna balance all the modules to roughly that, like to their 3.3 nominal. So this front pack is again like 80 volts. I mean, well, the middle pack's 80 volts. It's actually the center pack. There's that pack that's under the two controllers. That one's gonna be at 20 volts, you know, by doing the math. And then it's gonna be the rear. So I had to open it all up again. And you see how I got the cables disconnected. Because what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna connect to my negative there and my positive here. And the same thing, I did the math on this one, it ends up being like 60 volts. And the whole idea is to get these closer to the actual operating threshold of this charger. Because I'm almost like 99% sure that's why the charger is not kicking in. But I do have to verify, because if you know, if the charger doesn't work, then we're looking at other scenarios too. So what basically the premise of all this is to get the vehicle voltage up to its thresholds, turn the vehicle on, well, you know, charge it, turn it on, see if all the systems function, just to get a more thorough assessment of what's going on with the car. And that's the thing, right? This vehicle is really nice, but it definitely needs you know, some going through, right? That's kind of the scenario under that seat there. And so yeah, those of you who have, like, you know, an EV conversion that was done, you know, in the past, like, you know, it has a couple of years under its belt and it's giving you guys trouble, or it's something that you guys are interested in upgrading. You know, it's kind of one of the things. I know the shop's kind of a mess right now, but these are the battery packs, like the way we build them, right? They're fully isolated, fuses, everything, all the enclosures are inside, and that's kind of really what you would like to do, you know, versus, you know, having these things kind of run all over the place. You know, there's connections right under those orange cables, actually where the black cables are, is just an exposed high voltage connection. There's like several of them throughout the vehicle. The other thing as well, it doesn't have isolation contactors. So, you know, just me working on this thing has become a little bit of a scenario where I have to be really precautious while I'm disconnecting and connecting things. And, you know, that's why you see me taping things up everywhere. Because there's almost no way to isolate the voltage as you're working on segments of this car. So even as a maintenance standpoint for a gentleman like myself, it you know, it poses difficulty, right? The layout of the car was definitely left something to be desired. So we were able to get this car up and running again. Without a lot of issues with it, but it looks like what are you doing? Oh. So, well, it was a long weekend. We got the 64 Mercedes back up and running, even though it still has like several issues that need to be addressed. We were able to get it to run. We balanced the pack out, we found low cells, we found that the charger's not working, but we were able to get the car to run. And what's really nice is I'm actually gonna take it for a spin for you guys to kind of check it out, see what it does. So the car is actually on right now. Someone programmed like a creep mode into it, so the motor is actually spinning. So I made sure to put it in neutral. And there you go. Because of the weak cell that's in it and the fact that we can't really charge it up. Right now we're at nominal voltage. I'd love to take it out to the street, but the last thing I want to do is get, a few blocks from here and have the voltage sag and it kind of cuts out. But I want to hit the throttle a few more times, take it back to the shop, just kind of make sure to see how much it dipped. But for the most part, car feels really good. For a spin, right? So the car's been doing really well actually. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna put it out in the street for a little bit, give it a good little run before we put it away. All right, so here we go. It has a dual AC51s. Car's pretty peppy. I hit the throttle, we're watching the voltage sag a little bit. Seems okay. But again, I don't want to go too far. Filming. So, let's see what kind of turning radius is going to make it. And we're good. Clear the sidewalk. Wait for the car. Yeah, we're going to put this guy away, right? Like my son mentioned earlier, like why tempt fate? Car works, it's doing well. We know we got a little bit of an issue. Yeah, car's nice. It drives really well. It's smooth. I know a lot of people kind of moved away from the AC51s, but the transition is nice. Car feels well. Not getting very big voltage sag. Yeah, we're good. So we'll wrap this guy up. We're good.